Now, Dan, when you study with these gurus and you go about learning and taking in the information that they pass along, that they've received, probably in an oral tradition as well, did you find it that it kind of just clicked inside you, or is it something that you had to work on emptying your mind and really applying it to today's life? Because you have received plenty of wisdom, whether it is from reading or other gurus, but the way that you present it just shows me that you really understand it and maybe have been able to simplify it to apply it to now 2007 living.
Well, this is a very interesting question. Actually, several questions, Steve. I believe simple is powerful because we're more likely to do what is relatively simple. Einstein said everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler. In other words, H.L. Mencken, to cite another wit, said, for every complex problem, there's a simple solution that doesn't work. So I don't try to make things too simple. Some things do take a process over time. But I have found in my long journeys that things that are supposedly deep or highly intellectual, abstract concepts aren't as useful to people. They may enjoy hearing them and say, oh, that's interesting to think about, but I've found we have enough to think about already. So my background in sports leads me to go for practical outcomes, and as you say, practical applications in everyday life, in terms of learning to turn what we know into what we actually do, because that is what's going to make the difference. You pointed out a little earlier on the program that all we have is this day. Well, I would even go further and say all we have is this moment, and then this moment, and then this moment. That old saying, carpe diem, seize the day. Most of us have heard that, but I find that too big to get my mind around. I go with more carpe punctum, which is seize the moment, because life is a series of moments, and that's the best thing we can handle is facing what is in this moment and doing it with quality. You mentioned success, and it struck me recently, Steve, that I've actually never, even when I was a world champion, my goal was never winning. My goal was never success. All I've ever aimed for is excellence, because that is the only thing I can control. When I'm washing the dishes or writing a book or speaking to an audience, and when I was younger, when I was in school or in relationships, all I could strive for was to bring as much excellence as I could, excellent attention and quality of effort to the moment. The rest was not in my control. I couldn't control whether I, could succeed or find love or sink a putt or make a basket. But, of course, by making the effort, I vastly increased the odds of getting what I wanted over not making the effort. Michael Jordan said it beautifully. He said, you make 0% of the shots you don't take. So rather than try to bring impressive-sounding spiritual concepts, and I do some of that, but I try to do it in everyday terms, because spiritual life begins on the ground, not up in the air.
I'm a huge believer. What I do, I have a philosophy I call the 5 truths, and the first truth is, today is the only day in which you have any power. And I love the part in the movie where Nick Nolte has the actor. I'm not sure what the actor's name is who plays Dan Millman. He's in a rush to go somewhere. Nick Nolte throws him over the bridge, and then just as he gets out, here Dan is saying, I can't believe you threw me in the water. And Nick Nolte saying, well, I did you a favor. I was clearing your mind. He says, you weren't thinking about where you were in the rush to go to. You weren't thinking about grocery shopping. You were just thinking about the moment you were falling into the water. He says, you even had a word for it. Ah!
Exactly. So that was a great scene. I actually have that in the book, too. Now, the movie only covers the first 2/3 of the book, leaving out actually the most important part of the story. They wanted to frame it in a more simple way around a sports story which people could relate to on a visceral level, and I thought they did a nice job with that. It manages to capture some of the spirit of the book.
It's a great movie. I know Tony Robbins had actually written about the movie, saying that it's a movie that will change your life.
Yeah.
Impact the course of your life forever is what Tony Robbins says about this movie. I don't disagree. I've seen it twice now. There's not a lot of movies that I see twice, and this is one that I did choose to see twice because it really is a good movie. And again, the way that you present the information in the movie, the way that it's reflected in the movie, the information you present in your books, is practical. It is timeless wisdom that is simplified, but not too simple. But it is simplified in something that you can grasp. Like you just said, seize the moment. Do you know, people listening out there, how much stress you would save yourself if you would just seize this moment? You weren't worried about every other moment, and you were, as Dan said, make effort to just be excellent or to do your best at every moment, to be in the moment, similar to something that Byron Katie would say, just about being in the moment and being 100% into what you're doing, knowing that this is what you are supposed to be doing at this moment. If you would just apply that, the power, the connection you would make, you would realign yourself with what I feel is your greatest intent. I think our greatest intent is to live each moment. I don't think that we were put on this earth to worry about tomorrow, to worry about things like you had said earlier that we can't control. What you could control was that moment, and that's what you were controlling. Dan, do you think you travel extensively? You have a large event schedule on your website, which is danmillman.com. What do you think is the greatest or the most common barrier or thing that hinders someone's strive towards happiness, towards success, towards excellence?
Well, we do add a great many confusions to our lives and complications. Barbara Rasp, a writer, once said, the lesson is simple, the student is complicated. And the way I put it, to progress toward your goals, it's important to choose one of two of the following methods. Now, the first method I'm going to relate is much more popular today, which describes one way lives get so complicated and confused. And the second method is the one I recommend. So let me say the first one, the most popular approach to moving toward our goals and living wisely and well. Here's what most people do. They try to find a way to quiet their mind, create empowering beliefs and positive self-talk, to find their focus and affirm their power, to free their emotions and visualize positive outcomes so they can develop the confidence, to generate the courage, to find the determination, to make the commitment, to feel sufficiently motivated to do whatever it is they need to do. And that's the most popular approach. Pretty exhausting, but also fascinating. And the method I use is the second one, which I learned from someone named Saint Nike, which is just do it. Because it always comes down to that. If there's something we need to do, we can accept our emotions and thoughts, positive or negative, as natural to us in the moment. Sometimes my thoughts are positive, sometimes they're not. But I can accept them as natural, and they will pass in any case. The second thing I can do is focus on my goal in that moment, my purpose. And the third thing I can do is do what needs to be done in line with my purpose. That doesn't sound too radical or spiritual, but I'll tell you, it describes people who function well. And when we function well, our lives tend to be more together, more peaceful, more happy, more fulfilling, because we function well, rather than trying all these intermediate steps to fix our inside so we can finally live well.
We're speaking with Dan Millman, former world champion athlete and best-selling author of books including The Journeys of Socrates, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, The Life You Were Born to Live. His website is danmillman.com. He's here sharing his insights and stories and wisdom with us. You're listening to Empowered Living, Life, the Truth, and Being Free. We'll be right back.